So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So NEWMOA, this slide is just a little bit about NEWMOA. We're a nonprofit organization. We work with the states in the Northeast, so that's New England, New York, and New Jersey. This specific project that we're talking about was funded by the USDA. So this is a grant we got from them, and the work supports this. So as I mentioned earlier, today's webinar will review our project. We'll discuss the 4 major categories of bulky waste and particularly look at reuse and recycling options, some challenges for rural communities especially, and some possible solutions. We'll also discuss lessons learned and next steps from working with our project partners, and there'll be some time for Q&A at the end. Now, I should mention that for this specific project, we were tasked with working with 4 rural areas in the Northeast, so the options available to them for bulky waste are probably a lot different than options available in cities or larger towns. Some of the challenges are unique, some are the same, so just to give you an idea of what we're going to be focusing on here. So the 4 bulky wastes that we focused on as part of this project was furniture, and we further broke that down into metal, wooden, and upholstered furniture. We looked at mattresses and box springs, carpet, and large rigid plastics, which would be like kiddie swimming pools or play structures. These are our project partners. So again, they were rural communities in Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont. We developed a stakeholder work group in each of those locations, and with them we worked on some guidance documents, which I'll be showing in a few minutes. And so we developed some best management practice documents for these 4 different types of bulky waste. We also conducted workshops in the locations, and then we created these customized 2-page handouts or fact sheets for each of these locations. We're doing today's webinar, which we are going to summarize all the work that we've done, and all the materials are posted on the project website. So here's just a brief look of some of the outreach materials that I mentioned. If we have time at the end of this presentation, Jennifer will show you where you can find them online, but this URL at the bottom of the screen, that's our project webpage. And so we have 4 large documents for, you can see the carpet and furniture. We have one for mattresses and one for plastics as well. And then we have to the right these shorter handouts for each of the counties that we worked with in our project partner locations. All right, so basically when we started this project, we decided to work, to go around and visit some of these communities and see what they were currently doing about bulky items. We found that in most places, furniture, carpet, mattresses, all these bulky items are just disposed of in regular solid waste. Because they're expensive to process, most transfer stations do charge drop-off fees, and some curbside programs also charge fees. So depending on where you live, you might be able to get a sticker from your town, pay for that sticker, and they'll come pick up a bulky item. But you can see from, this is just a picture of one of our sites. It's very expensive to dispose of these items, both for residents and the town. So by reusing and recycling these bulky items, you'll save money on disposal costs and hauling fees. Conserves energy and raw materials, returns products and materials back into the economy. So for recycling items, they can go into new items, and that process is stimulating jobs in the economy. And then for reuse, reusing these items can really help people who need them but can't afford to buy them new. We also learned in talking to our project partners that reuse is happening in a lot of places. I think everybody's pretty cognizant right now of, trying to do what's good for the environment, trying to do what's good from a social standpoint. So, people do give unwanted items to friends or family. There's websites such as FreeCycle where you can post things and people will, pick them up. There's neighborhood yard sales. There's online yard sales like Craigslist, secondhand shops and consignment shops. There are some that do, accept these bulky items. Not everybody does, but a lot of places do. And then there's some charities such as like Salvation Army, Goodwill, and they have their own secondhand shops. And furniture banks are another example, and they specifically will take furniture and mattresses and supply them to low-income clients. So, these are some of the things that we looked at that was currently going on, and how could we, really promote this. The next section of the webinar, we're going to go through each category of bulky waste individually. So this is the furniture section. And again, we're going to look at metal, wood, and upholstered furniture. So we found that a lot of organizations will accept good quality furniture for reuse. So they'll accept donations, Habitat for Humanity, Salvation Army, Goodwill, St. Vincent de Paul, and furniture banks, which I listed here. And so, communities, if you knew that there was a local nonprofit that would accept these type of goods, it would be, really helpful to promote them to your residents, and that way you can kind of divert any good quality items from disposal and donate them to a good cause. One of the challenges that we heard from both communities and from these charities that accept the items is that upholstered furniture like couches and chairs, there is a risk or concern about bed bugs or other insects. So there are places that do treat upholstered furniture. One of the furniture banks we talked to in Massachusetts does heat treatment, and this is a picture of their heat treatment trailer. So they put furniture and mattresses in there, and when it's full, they treat them, and then they're available for reuse. And then a program in Vermont also does heat treatment. So that's a good option if you can find an organization that has the capability. The other option is if you want to do some kind of reuse event or reuse program, the community would have to be really specific if they want to exclude upholstered furniture or mattresses. If you don't want to, if the organization you're working with doesn't want to deal with that, you just need to make sure that that information is communicated to residents and kind of screen the donations as they come in. There's a lot of local reuse happening at the communities that we worked with. Some of them have permanent swap shops. Some of them have one-day swap events. So, in the spring, they'll have a big event where residents can drop off good quality items for free, and other residents can pick them up for free, and it's a good way to get some good quality stuff. And then a fix-it clinic is an idea that some communities do around the U.S. really, and it's basically promoting an event to repair or restore furniture, kind of fix it up so that it can be reused. And if you see the picture on the right-hand side here, there is a list of charitable organizations in this particular county. So again, this transfer station is promoting that information to residents. It's kind of encouraging residents to think about reuse before they just drop it off at the transfer station. Here are some pictures of the swap shops we encountered as part of this project. Some are covered, like the pictures on the left, but again, this shed is small, so you can see it does have some furniture, but not a lot, so it just depends on your items. The picture on the right is outdoors, so there was a little awning that kind of covered the table and everything under there, but again, this is not a permanent solution, and if things get wet, then they're no longer going to be good for reuse. But the communities, they're working with what they have, so these are just some examples of what we've seen. So, one of the things we talked about with communities is, okay, if you're going to do a swap shopper event, what are some of the challenges? And staff or volunteers is a big one. You know, a lot of these transfer stations they're not open all the time. You know, they have part-time staff, so it's really a challenge to get people to be able to, you know, show up and do the work and get this going. So, you know, a possible solution could be to partner with a local group or business that can kind of help at the event and, you know, screen items that are coming in and work with residents and consumers to, you know, make sure they're getting what they want. The other main challenge is a covered or sheltered location. As I mentioned, if furniture or any of these other items are exposed to the elements, they're no longer a good quality. So they really need to make sure to have the appropriate setup to store these items. And if it's an event, and you know, hopefully if you have a swap event, a lot of things will get taken by residents, but there's always going to be some that remain. So what do you do with those? And some of the ideas are you could partner with a local charity and they'll take whatever good quality items are left. So, you know, Habitat for Humanity would come with their truck after the event and pick up what's ever left over. You could do disposal with the town, either, you know, through a private hauling service like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, who apparently does do some reuse, recycle, or, you know, just haul to your normal transfer station. But, you know, one of the main keys is to charge a drop-off fee to offset these expenses. So, you know, if a bulky waste disposal fee for a, you know, piece of furniture like a bureau was $25, if you had a swap event, you might say, okay, well, you know, if you're going to bring a bureau to be swapped, you're going to have to pay $5 or something like that. And that way that could you know, kind of offset the disposal fee, and the person's not going to have to pay as much as they would. And you can also emphasize that donations are tax deductible, so that might encourage some people to make that move. So one thing that's unique with furniture is that a lot of furniture has the potential to be repurposed or refurbished. So promoting refurbishing, remanufacturing, rebuilding, renovating, that's when, you know, a piece of furniture that's maybe torn or ripped or broken is fixed, removed, replaced, and then it looks like new. And so this is just one picture that we found online. Again, there are fix-it clinics and repair cafes around the country that kind of organize these events, and a lot of them work with like local churches or Boy Scout groups or you know, small businesses to kind of host these things, and people come in with their goods and are able to get assistance to repair them. Here's another photo that we found on social media, and so it's a great source for inspiration and helpful tips. So, you know, just promoting repurposing to residents and encouraging them to, you know, try to find new ways to reuse unwanted items is a great idea. And they look, you know, look so cute. This one piece of furniture looks great. So if you have a piece of furniture and it can't be reused, you know, it's not good quality, no one wants to use it, another option would be to look at recycling furniture. So if it's wood, you know, it's a little bit tricky because if the wood furniture has been stained or painted or, you know, chemically treated, it can't be recycled as clean wood. Also manufactured wood, so anything like the particle board that's not really good quality, that can't be recycled. So for these particular items, you know, one of the good options, or one of the options that communities are considering, is to send them to a construction demolition debris recycler instead of the regular solid waste. So, you know, it'd be to investigate what is the benefits and financial, you know, pros and cons to do that. Clean wood can be recycled, and most communities do that. It can be made into fuel pellets and chips, so that's good for the clean, unfinished wood. Metal furniture is the same. There, a lot of communities already collect and recycle metal furniture, so most of the time this is not a problem. The metal can just be recycled as is. The upholstered furniture, again, if reuse is not an option, it could also be sent to a C&D recycler along with other wood furniture. It's easier, what we've heard is it's easier to crush a couch or a chair than it is a mattress. So many of the C&D recyclers will take upholstered furniture like couches and chairs, but and then that way they can separate everything out into the fabric and the wood and the metal pieces. But the mattresses are really hard for them to process, so many of them don't want to deal with mattresses, which I'm going to talk about now. Okay, so mattresses is a big problem. This is another type of bulky waste that we looked at, and these are some major issues. 15 to 20 million mattresses and box springs are disposed of each year in the U.S. They're big, so they occupy a lot of space in the landfill, and what's more is that they're really hard to compact. So they're hard to process, they catch in the equipment, and that's why a lot of the recyclers don't want to deal with mattresses. It's much easier to crush a couch than it is to crush a mattress. So a lot of times they're totally separated. If a community is bringing their bulky bin for disposal and it's got furniture and mattresses and other C&D debris, and they physically have to often pull off the mattresses and separate them, which costs more money. So that's also why there's usually a fee for residents to do it. So the mattress disposal is costing the community money both at the municipal level and the residential level. So again, one of the things that we looked at was reuse, and communities can partner with nonprofits to promote donation, hold a collection event for good quality mattresses. Believe it or not, there are lots of places that want mattresses. The furniture banks we talked to, this website, they're all over the country, and they do heat treat everything that they get. They work with social workers and serve low-income families, so they have these big warehouses where people come in and they pick what they want, and mattresses are one of the things that's in most need, because a family of 4 only needs, one dining room table or 1 couch, but they need at least 3 or 4 mattresses. So again, that's something to really consider if you have a mattress that's in good condition. Here's just another photo of the heat treatment trailer. So it's very efficient. It can fit. I don't think I have a. No, I don't have a slide of how many mattresses it fits, but it does fit a lot. So moving along to mattress recycling. If the mattress can't be reused, another option to look at is recycling. And these are components of the mattress. You can see it's made up of metal, foam, wood, fabric, the non-recyclable material that's sometimes like the glue and adhesives and everything that kind of holds it together. So most of the components, about 95%, can be recycled. This is a photo of a recycling facility in Massachusetts. And what's important to note, 2 things, is that Massachusetts does not mandate mattress recycling. There's no law that says mattresses have to be recycled, which I'll talk about later, but they do have facilities that do that. And this one in particular works with people to deconstruct the mattresses and separate the components into recycling. So you can see here this worker is, pulling off the foam and the stuffing from the top, and they're kind of separating out the wood and the metal frames and the foams in the corner. And so all of those components can be individually recycled. Here's another photo just showing the different components that are in a mattress. So foam, cotton. And so the mattress recyclers will separate this out, and then they'll recycle it according to the market value. So it goes different places. So what we found was that at least in some of the communities that we were working with our project partners, that some were doing recycling. So this is a picture of a community in Massachusetts. It's their recycling trailer, and there's mattresses in there. And basically, this trailer kind of protects everything from the weather. So people can bring their mattresses for the recycling and at this transfer station, and then when the trailer's full, it goes down and it brings them to a recycler in Massachusetts that then processes them. There is a fee. So this transfer station that has the trailer charges residents a fee, and then the recyclers that pick up the mattresses or accept them, they also charge a fee. So it kind of evens out. But there are some recycling facilities in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. And Connecticut and Rhode Island, what's unique is they have a manufacturer recycling program, a manufacturer-sponsored recycling program. Massachusetts does not, and yet it's still able to kind of do this stuff. So the extended producer responsibility, if anybody's familiar, it's called EPR. And this type of program is in Connecticut and Rhode Island and also California for mattresses. So they require manufacturers of mattresses to establish a program to collect, transport, and recycle the mattresses. Consumers will pay a small fee at the point of purchase. So if you buy a new mattress, there might be a small fee tagged onto that. And then that fee goes into a fund to pay for the recycling and disposal costs. So this is a law, and states, would have to pass legislation. So as I said, there's 3 states that have already passed. Massachusetts has not, but they're still doing some recycling. So there are other states that kind of do recycling on their own. This website, the Mattress Recycling Council, they have a lot of information. And Connecticut has kind of compiled a lot of information already. So they started their mattress extended producer responsibility in May of 2015. They were the first state. So it's been going on for about a year and a half. On average, they're collecting about 10,000 mattresses per month that are now going to be recycled, so instead of disposal. So, that's a huge amount they're diverting from the landfill. There's 90 municipalities that are participating in this program, so that means 90 places in Connecticut are having a place to set up to collect these. So whether it's a trailer or a shed or some kind of vehicle to collect the mattresses until they have enough to go sent to recycling. And because of this, the mattresses aren't going to disposal. These communities are saving thousands of dollars. They're supporting more jobs because the recyclers have to process these mattresses, and they're getting more and more coming in. So it's also adding to boosting the economy. The first picture that I kind of showed you with those guys deconstructing the mattress, kind of pulling off the foam, that was a nonprofit, this UTEC in Lowell, and so the people that were working there were kind of youth that they give them a job and they do this work. Anybody can drop off these mattresses. The facility does charge a fee, and it kind of helps offset the expenses and pay the employees. There's also some for-profit organizations in Massachusetts that will recycle mattresses, and lots of other bulky waste too. They'll take furniture, some will take carpet, some will take plastics. We found that a lot of places like to work with large generators, such as hotels and colleges, because if a hotel's changing out their mattresses, they're going to have a ton. They're going to have hundreds of mattresses that are in really good condition. So those could easily be, donated for reuse or cheaply recycled, because the quantity is going to offset the cost for hauling. And same with colleges. If there's, a good amount of mattresses to be had, kind of helps. So going back to Massachusetts, as I mentioned, they do not have an EPR program, but Mass DEP, which is the Department of Environmental Protection, does have a grant program. So it helps municipalities fund the rental or purchase of a collection container, so this trailer to collect mattresses, and it helps with the processing fees. So there was one municipal collection program in our project partner locations, Greenfield, Mass. And so this is their trailer. And as I mentioned, they would charge residents a small fee to drop them off, and once it got full, they'll bring the trailer down to the recycler. But again, it's kind of helping that community to avoid the disposal costs. So I think the program's been, pretty successful, and they're happy with it. It just started this fall, so there's not really any collection results yet, but it's going well. We found that some other communities really promote dismantling and deconstruction of mattresses. So this one transfer station in Maine that we worked with, they somehow figured out that the labor cost of having their transfer station operators and staff dispose of the mattresses was cheaper than hauling them and disposing of them separately. So basically they say staff does about 6 to 8 mattresses a week. I think it takes about half an hour, depending on how much practice you have, how often you're doing it, but, ripping the mattress, the stuffing off, and kind of separating the wood and the metal and the fabric, and then recycling those components individually. Even though it takes staff time, it's going to save the disposal and hauling costs. So that's something to think about.
I just want to note that the photo is not of the main transfer station. It's totally a different photo. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. This is another facility that is kind of segregating their mattresses. So some of our other partner locations are kind of evaluating this and seeing if they could do something, like this, either doing a one-day collection event or recycling. So, so if you didn't want your, if you're working at a transfer station and you don't want your staff have to spend the time, you could promote dismantling at home to residents. And there are a lot of videos on YouTube that we were able to find of, DIY videos of people dismantling their own mattress and separating it into, different components. And by doing this, it reduces the overall bulk, so it's easier to transport. So you have your metal and your wood and your fabric. For a resident, you don't have to pay the disposal fee. At the very beginning when I showed you that that image of fees charged for bulky waste disposal, I think the mattresses were like $30. If you, spent time and energy yourself and deconstructed it yourself and then brought the individual components to the facility, you wouldn't have to pay that bulky waste fee. So that could be an incentive for some homeowners. And there will still be some material that has to go in the trash that's not recyclable, so there'll be some, but there will be a lot less. And as I mentioned earlier, yeah, it takes probably about 30 minutes to dismantle a full-size mattress. And I think, that it probably gets quicker the more you do it. So it would make sense for, you know, staff doing this a lot every week. So as I mentioned, you know, clean wood can be recycled. So typically the wood in mattresses is clean. It's not painted. It's not, you know, varnished. So there's usually a really good market for recycling the clean wood. Same with metal. Most communities do recycle metal. So all of the springs and metal components in the mattresses have a good option for recycling there. The mattress foam and stuffing is usually disposed of. There is textile recycling, and they will accept sometimes like the fabric materials, but they have to be clean. So if they're like stained, ripped, wet, they probably won't. So it just depends. You know, I think a lot of places do have the textile recycling bins, and it just kind of depends exactly what they want, whether these materials can be recycled during those bins or they'll have to be disposed of. So for furniture, one of the main conclusions we came was to promote the reuse and refurbish and repurposing ideas. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and furniture is, you know, one of the things that most places do take for reuse. Swapping is a great way to encourage a local reuse. So by hosting a one-day swap event, encouraging residents to come and swap their furniture is a great idea. For both furniture and mattresses, you know, promoting existing donation options is good. If you hold a special collection event for donation, so partnering with, you know, a Habitat for Humanity or someplace specifically, and they'll bring their truck and collect everything and then, you know, bring it away. That's, you know, one good solution, because then you're not dealing with everything that got left, you know, everything that didn't get swapped. So partnering is great. Whatever else you can do to send for recycling, so communities could evaluate the transportation and disposal costs. So whether you dispose of it as a solid waste or recycle it, there's a cost associated with that. So kind of evaluate the cost for transportation and disposal versus transportation and recycling, and they might even out. And, you know, again, it kind of depends on the location and what you have to work with. But if you can collect items, if you have a container or a covered location, you can store them for a little amount of time. That usually cuts down on the hauling, because you can, if you have a good volume, then it's going to be cheaper to haul the materials. Again, you know, as I mentioned, the transportation and recycling costs could weigh against the disposal costs, and always consider the fees charged to residents. I think a lot of places do charge residents a fee. Does that fee really cover, you know, what it cost? You know, consider changing that, or having a tiered system where if the item can be reused and donated, it's a smaller fee versus it has to be sent to recycling or has to be sent to disposal. There's different fees. And then for mattresses, you know, the dismantling, so promoting that to residents or doing it yourself at the transfer station can save municipalities a lot of money as well. So I went through that a little bit fast, but we have 2 more bulky waste categories to go. My colleague Jennifer Griffith is going to take over here on the carpeting section.
Great, thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, from the current slide. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm just going to go through the other 2 bulky wastes that we focused on, carpet and bulky rigid plastics, and then draw some conclusions, and then show some of the resources, the different handout materials that we developed are posted on our website, and I'll show you where. and sort of what they look like. So with that, we'll move on to carpet. So why are we focusing on carpet? One, because it's heavy, so it's expensive. It's a heavy material in the bulky bins, and reuse is usually just feasible for smaller, area rugs, and they have to be sort of in exceptional condition in order for them to be able to be reused. But an additional aspect of carpet is that of all the municipal solid waste, an EPA study a few years ago found that it has basically the fourth greatest potential for greenhouse gas reduction amongst all sort of waste that's disposed. It's only behind corrugated cardboard and office paper recycling. Those would give you a better climate change, greenhouse gas benefit than carpet recycling, and also food scraps composting. But right behind those is carpet. So that's why carpet recycling is a focus. However, not the greatest, it's not the best potential at the moment, but we're still going to, we focus on it, and I want to talk through it a little bit. So basically, carpet's composed of the face fiber, the backing material, and adhesive. And the nylon face fiber has significant value and is recyclable, and it's actually, got a pretty strong market. And until recently, most carpet was made from nylon. Some of it was made from olefin, which is polypropylene, and that also has some value when it's recycled. However, in the past, decade and certainly over the past several years, more and more carpet started being made from PET. So now, unfortunately, about over half of what the carpet that's sold is made from PET plastic. And if you try to recover the fibers from that, they're just of such low quality that there's really no market. And this aspect of carpet manufacturing has now made carpet recycling, a big problem. For carpet recycling, there are places that process carpet, and that when they take it in, first of all, carpet's got to be dry, and it's got to be free of mold and a lot of contamination before it to be able to be recycled. They also need to sort it by which kind of fiber it is, so they know what type of material they're producing. And like I mentioned before, the PET carpet has no value, and so that carpet just has to be, put aside and thrown out. If it is nylon or olefin fiber, then it's sheared from the backing, and then in some places the backing is disposed of. There are some processors that have really high-tech equipment, and so they can process the backing into their materials as well, and they also have markets. So, after the fibers are separated, they're cleaned and they're sold, and they're made into a variety of products. The automotive market is big, but also they can be recycled back into new carpet. However, with the more and more PET carpet, processors are basically not able to sell as much. They're selling less, and they're also paying more for the disposing of all this carpet that doesn't have value. So in the old days, not too long ago, carpet recyclers used to take the carpet in, a load of carpet in for nothing, for no fee, because they were able to recover enough value from it. But now, with so much carpet that doesn't have value, they're starting to charge to accept a mixed load, because they really don't want mixed load. And in the Northeast here, there are carpet recyclers that still exist in Massachusetts and New Jersey. Really, the main one is down in New Jersey, and they are sort of still able to survive because they focus mainly on commercial carpet tiles, because those are generated in large quantities, and they have relationships. They develop relationships with installers and construction companies, and they get good contracts from them and get a good volume. and those carpet tiles do have value. And then also, as Rachel mentioned, with the mattress recyclers, they tend to, process other products as well and do other recycling. So they're still able to exist, even though the market right now for carpet recycling is not very good. But, a community that's committed can collect carpet and send it for recycling, but it does have to be kept protected from the weather. There is an expense to transport it because it's got to, go pretty far to get to a processor. So the processors are also charging fees now. So a community could pre-sort and only send, the valuable carpet for recycling. However, that requires that you purchase that ID scanner to figure out what kind of carpet type it is, so that you are only sending the good quality. You got to have people to do that. You've got to be able to dispose of the things that don't have any value. So, so the feasibility of carpet recycling is not real strong at the moment in this part of the country, anyway. But in conclusion, half of the carpet that is, generated could be, in theory, recycled. But the economics just aren't favorable right now. Changes are coming. The manufacturers of carpet have finally agreed, as I understand, that they're going to start labeling the back of the carpet with what the face fiber is, so that you don't have to buy that expensive, several multi-$1,000 scanner equipment. You'll just be able to look at the back of the carpet and know whether it has value or not. So that will change, help change the economics some. So you've got to, sort of evaluate the before and after transportation and disposal costs. I just want to emphasize again that, anything that's removed from the bulky bin, if you take out the mattresses, if you take out the upholstered furniture, if you take out the carpet, you're going to fill that bulky bin a lot more slowly. So the bulky bin won't have to transport near as much as it does currently. And that's a big cost savings in the transporting, the hauling costs for those bulky bins. So that you have to take that into consideration. It's not just that you'll have a lower tipping fee, but that just the whole hauling, you'll have to do it a lot less often. So that's a savings as well. So you have to look at the collection feasibility for carpet. Do you have a location? You got to be able to keep it dry. And you partner up with other communities so that you can, do a more central location, or, part of what I always feel is, I'm not sure why people that are selling carpet and installing it, often they take, your old carpet away. Could they be a collection point for carpet recycling? You have to look at, again, the transporting to the recycler and the tipping fee and the drop-off fees that are charged to residents. So, again, there seems to be significant potential for extended producer responsibility for carpet as well. There's a limited number of manufacturers of carpet. States do have laws for similar consumer products. They're listed here. So there's a potential application for carpet. There is, I wouldn't call it extended producer responsibility. There is a carpet recycling sort of initiative in California that the way it was set up, I don't want to go through it here, but it has not been that successful. It doesn't really put the onus on the manufacturers to have the system work, but there is more carpet recycling going on in California, and that's where some of the high-tech processors are located. And there's more information about product stewardship and extended producer responsibility at the Product Stewardship Institute. On their website, they did have an initiative focused on carpet. They really tried to get things going, and the manufacturers were just really resistant. So now I'll move on to bulky rigid plastics. And there's a little bit better story here. So, you know, there's definite potential for reuse. That's appropriate for good quality items. Communities can promote donation to charity. A lot of resale shops, you know, are interested in items for kids and will accept them. Or this is a picture from a swap event. So folks can, you know, if they've got bulky rigid plastic items that they no longer need, you could have a swap event. As Rachel mentioned before, if you have a swap event, you've got to also plan for to, you know, move items that remain at the end. But plastics are recyclable, so there's a potential to partner with a recycler for the bulky rigid plastics that aren't swapped. So the one idea that Northampton is sort of a larger community in Massachusetts. It's not a large community by any means, but it's larger, but it's located in a rural area and it's surrounded by a lot of rural communities. And they have a lot of great reuse initiatives going on there. Not all of them for bulky waste, but some smaller things too. So I would highly recommend checking out Northampton, their reuse committees activities, because they do a lot. But what they do is twice a year in the spring or the fall, they hold a recycling rally, where on the right-hand side you can see the types of items that they are able to partner with recyclers to collect and recycle. The bicycles get reused through a program, but everything else is going for recycling. But the bulky rigid plastics, you'll notice on the left side, they also promote the swapping of those. So people bring their unwanted items. If they're in poor quality, they go directly into the recycling bin, and if they're of good quality, they get put out for people to potentially collect. So here's a picture of what that looks like. So you'll notice in the back, there's the bin, the disposal bin that things are going into, and then the good quality things are on the lawn. And at the end of the day, the things that are still out on the lawn, they end up being put in the collection bin for recycling. So another option, if you don't want to deal with the swapping, is just have ongoing collection at the transfer station. So this is a picture again in Western Massachusetts where they do collect the plastics for recycling at their transfer station. But again, you need, if you're going to collect stuff for recycling, you got to have a place to bring it. So so it seems that the materials recycling facilities, the places that the communities already deal with their regular recyclables, their cans and bottles and plastics and all that, many of them, not all, will also take bulky rigid plastics. But there are some considerations with this. They only really want plastic. So, metal and fabric need to be removed to the greatest extent possible. So you can't just put a car seat into the bulky plastics recycling container. They really need to be broken down. They also, a MRF generally will want a large quantity at a time, because it's not, the material's too big, they can't process it through their recycling facility, but they will, put it, and some of them can bale it separately. And they also don't have storage space at their facility to be able to just put a few things aside, and then when they get accumulate a quantity enough to bale it, they really need to get dropped off quantities that they can bale. And right now, as we all know, all recycling markets seem to be weak, so plastic is as well. So the MRF might charge a fee for drop-off, or for partnering on a recycling event. But in the scheme of things, it might be relatively cost neutral. Again, you just have to look at before and waste transport. If you're taking these bulky plastics items out of your bin, your bulky bin, then you don't have to haul the bulky bin as often. I think I've said that before. And you got to kind of weigh that against any recycling, the transport and tipping costs. And if you're going to do an ongoing collection, you're going to need a location for that container and the container. Plastics, it doesn't matter as much if they get wet. However, a lot of plastics can be reservoirs. You don't want to be breeding mosquitoes and that sort of thing. So it still is a good idea with the plastics to keep them out of the weather and dry. So with that, I'll go into some summary and lessons learned. So on reuse, just in general, communities can promote existing donation options. If there are Salvation Armies or Goodwills or, a local organization that does accept furniture or the plastics or area rugs, you can promote those ideas. You can also promote the refurbishing and repurposing. If you don't already have a swap area at the transfer station, it is, that's an option. You can host a reuse event, like a yard sale or a swap, and you can also partner with charities to hold a collection event for donation, or add a container at the transfer station that the charity would come pick up. In recycling, you can add a dedicated container at the transfer station and host collection events for recycling. But the considerations are basically, it requires human resources to do this work. You're going to have some staff and or volunteers to, if you're going to establish a swap shop, or anybody that has a swap shop knows that, it requires some people to keep it from getting too cluttered, to clean it out periodically, to get rid of stuff that's not swapping. It's obviously going to take some hours to organize and run an event. Also, if you're going to try to find donation partners for events, that's going to also require time. If you're going to add containers at your transfer station, that also adds effort. So the big thing first is to determine if there's energy and time to change the status quo from just throwing everything out. It's also going to require some financial evaluation. I won't go over this again, but you have to look at your transport and disposal costs as they are now, and then if you took the items out of the bulky bin, what would they be afterwards? The collection feasibility, do you have physical space to locate collection containers or a swap shop? You also have to build storage space or rent a container. A lot of people seem to prefer just using the trailer, an 18-wheeler trailer to collect their things, because then they can just fill it up and then use that same container as the one that goes down the road. They don't have to transport. They don't have to move items from a collection area into a container for transport. Then there's cost to transport to a recycler if you're going to recycle, and the tipping fee there. And in this area, rural areas are definitely at a disadvantage, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. So to evaluate the drop-off fees that you charge to residents. Not everybody actually charges the drop-off fee for bulky waste. Some rural areas feel that they want people to at least bring their bulky items into the transfer station for disposal rather than just leaving them out in the community or out in their backyards or by the side of the road. So, but if fees are charged, could they be differential? Could they be increased? Could they promote? Could they be less for things that are recyclable versus disposing? And, in general, you might require a subsidy of some sort. It might not be quite as cheap as disposal to collect and send something for recycling. And as I mentioned, the economics definitely limit options in rural areas. Relatively low volumes of material of one particular type of material are generated, whether it be just wood furniture for recycling or low volumes of, the mattresses. You're not going to fill one of those big trailers in any short period of time. So, but you don't want to be shipping containers that aren't full. So, it requires storage space. One thought is to potentially collaborate with other communities so that if your community, collects only 10 or 12 mattresses in 2 months, well, if another community does the same, and maybe one truck can move around and pick up mattresses from a bunch of different communities and fill a truck. However, even with that, you still have to consider the hauling. The project partners that I worked more closely with up in Maine and in Vermont, the recyclers for mattresses are down in Massachusetts. So the hauling distance, is pretty significant, and the cost for that. So we did want to talk about mattress recycling, though, and I really want to, again, promote the model of that UTEC facility. I forget exactly what that stands for, but it's a program that's really helping to try to employ and provide skills to troubled youth, or actually it's youth that actually have been in trouble. And so their mission is not 100% to make money. Their mission is to help these kids, but one way they're doing it is by doing mattress recycling. So there just could be other opportunities for something like that in other places to develop. It might not exist right now, but maybe people's brains will start thinking, and someone will have the time and the energy to change the status quo. Another aspect of rural areas is that usually the donation options, like the Salvation Army or the Goodwill, their reuse stores are usually located in more populated, the more populated town, not out in the really rural communities. But those populated towns are generally where people are going to do their shopping. So there is potential, to again see if things if the resources available in the more populated area can be leveraged, and reuse and recycling events can be more regional in nature. So, and then some just real general lessons learned. Again, it seems to be from our project and people that we've been speaking with, the reuse potential is highest for furniture and the bulky rigid plastics, although we did find that the reuse of mattresses, could be an option. Again, in our region, the furniture banks, there's one in Maine, again, in the more populated area of Maine, and then there's several in Massachusetts, and probably you'll find in other parts of the country. Again, they're in the more urban areas, but mattress reuse, might be feasible, and some people might be motivated to try to do that. Recycling, seems to be maybe the most feasible for mattresses and bulky rigid plastics. Again, the location of those recyclers may or may not, be an issue, particularly for rural areas. And that also looking at potentially wood and upholstered furniture, going to separating those and sending them to a C&D recycler. In the Northeast, there's several C&D recycling facilities, and one of the things that they really are, one of their bigger outputs is wood chips. So inputs of wood, and then of course everybody will separate out the metal, and there are places for metal to go. So quite a few C&D recyclers, but not all of them in this area would take loads of wood furniture. And right now it looks like disposal is really the only option for carpet, unless it's really small area rugs that are in really good quality that can be reused. And that extended producer responsibility certainly would make mattress and carpet recycling feasible for urban and rural areas alike. And just some final lessons learned. For swap shops and reuse events, you definitely need to plan for the items that will remain after those events. So there needs to be a plan. Either the good stuff is picked up by a charitable organization, but there's still going to be stuff that isn't what anybody wants, and you got to plan for that. And for all the reuse and recycling events, from the people that we have talked to that do them, it's certainly a lot of effort to set up the first time or two, and you might not feel like you've had much success, that not much has come of it, that not that many people came, but if the community can count on it, they'll get used to it, they'll start planning for it, and the momentum will build, and you will have had experience doing it the first few times, and there'll be a lot less work to set up and do as well. So reuse and recycling events, I think are a valuable option, but like this slide is saying, you have to really make the effort to try to do it and not be discouraged, and citizens will get used to the option and use it more if it's a regular thing that they can count on. So I didn't want to let this webinar go by and have people here on the webinar without letting you know that there a little bit of additional information on bulky waste reuse that we've come across on the project that not necessarily rural focused, but there is the IRN, which they label themselves as the reuse network. I think it used to stand for Institutional Reuse Network. It manages surplus from schools and businesses. If people are refurbishing their office, or definitely schools, public schools or colleges, and they have a bunch of their furniture or their mattresses that they no longer need. The reuse network, they send them overseas for reuse to colleges and schools and communities that need bureaus and tables and all those kind of things. So I have the website here, especially in the Northeast, where our disposal costs are relatively high. They feel that they are almost always less expensive than disposal. In other parts of the country, that might not necessarily be the case, but a lot of schools and businesses do want to try to reuse and recycle as much as possible, so this is an option. that people should be aware of. And then also, just, many universities also undertake reuse. If you have a local college or university or boarding school maybe that's not currently trying to reuse and set up a program to try to deal with the end of the school year, student move-outs, you might want to look around. These are just two that I came across quickly, but I know that there's plenty of other universities that do this as well, but they have information on their websites that might be a model and lessons learned again on how to do reuse of bulky materials. So the websites for these two were too long for me to put the websites in the slides, but they are hyperlinked. So we will be posting these slides on the NEWMOA website after the presentation, so you'll be able to use the links then. So, Rachel, I don't know, should we take questions now, or should I show people what we've got up on the website?
We can take a couple now. Do you want me to read them out for you?
Sure, I guess.
Okay. Well, some of them are kind of specific. And one person wanted to know if you could share the name of the transfer station in Maine that is taking apart the mattresses for recycling. I don't know if that was one you worked with.
Yes. Well, I didn't work directly with them, but they're in the region. It's the Norway and Paris. It's two communities. There's a section of Maine that has Mexico, Sweden, Norway, Paris. They have all kinds of, you can go with lots of different foreign countries in a very small geographic space up there in Maine. But it's the Norway and Paris transfer station.
Nice. And another person asked a question about charging fees for recycling mattresses and wanted to know if it was the same for box springs. And yes,
yes,
the recyclers have charged the same fee for a mattress or box spring. So generally, I assume the transfer stations would charge residents the same fee as well, but I guess it could kind of depend on the transfer station. We have a question about if, I don't know if we know this, but is there any carpet recycling done in Alaska?
Oh my goodness.
I know you said there's a lot in California.
Yes, because California has, like I said, they didn't really adopt an extended producer responsibility program, but they do have an effort and they do have legislation, but I don't think Alaska has.
I wouldn't think so.
It seems like the market for where that material could be used, like I said, I know a lot of it goes into automotive, the interiors of automotives. Yeah.
Okay.
I tend to doubt it because there's not a lot of carpet recycling going on even in the Northeast. So.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think so. And the final question I have here in the queue is kind of specific. So it says Northampton, Mass. Also collects white rigid styrofoam. Do you know if that's recycled or what they do with that?
Yes, and I've been meaning to follow up on this because the community that I live in here in Massachusetts that is, in a more populated area, but they also are still collecting only the white styrofoam. There used to be somebody that recycled all the styrofoam, but now it's limited just to the white styrofoam. So in my community, so I know there is still somebody's recycling somewhere that white styrofoam, but I don't know. I will try to. Keep meaning to call my recycling coordinator in my town and find out the details, but.
Okay, well that's all of the questions we have in the queue, but we encourage people to submit anything else using that question box. And oh, there's yeah, well, so there we have some comments. Polyfoam, could be polyfoam recycler, maybe. And also Newburyport does collection. So again, Newburyport in Massachusetts also does a big collection event for rigid foam. So not a rural area, but there are some places.
Right. But there is still a market somewhere locally for that material, but I'm not sure where exactly the user of it is.
Right.
Okay, well, people can still type in their questions, but I'll just show you some of the resources that we have, because many of them are not location specific, so there might be things that you might want to check out yourself. So hopefully this will work. To open up the NEWMOA website. So we do have a website. NEWMOA. Can you see that okay, Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did make a page on NEWMOA's website. Is very, very old, but we're just a small nonprofit. We haven't had the resources to update it, but we did put a page here. We've developed a series of publications focused on best management practices. We've hosted some workshops, and this is our webinar. So, but I will show you the publications. We've made brochures on reusing and recycling furniture, mattresses, carpet, and large rigid plastics. They can be looked at as individual, 8.5 by 11 pages, or if you wanted to print them as a brochure, the 11 by 17 layout. The carpet and the plastics ones are just a single sheet in 11 by 17, and the furniture and the mattresses are two 11 by 17 pages. So I'll just open up the individual pages of the mattress one. So these are not location specific at all, except that that some of the case studies and people highlighted in here are located in the Northeast. So here's the Wish project, the furniture bank that has the heat treatment trailer in Massachusetts. There is, let's see what else. We put the mattress recycling facilities that exist in the Northeast are listed here. So it's not, the general information is not Northeast specific, but the people highlighted are. And we have a little bit about extended producer responsibility and the results in Connecticut. So there's those 4 brochures that we have up on the NEWMOA website. Again, they're not location specific, but some of the things that are highlighted in them are, located here in the Northeast. And then we've also developed some handouts that are meant, so the brochures are targeted a little bit more towards municipalities and people that are sort of decision makers and community activist folks that might want to start something, to give them some information. The handouts are meant more for residents, and we have developed location-specific ones, but then we also made more generic ones that are in a writable template. So I'll show you those in a minute, but I'll open up first some of the location-specific ones. So here is the one for Franklin County in Massachusetts. That's a rural county in the center of the state, sort of. And we list the local online exchanges that they have, the local reuse and donation options. This area has some recycling options for mattresses and the bulky rigid plastics. So on the back page, we have a box, a table with some of where the different items can go. and then also if you are going to be throwing them out, what the options for disposal in Franklin County are. So that is the local sort of handout for a location that has recycling. I worked up in Vermont, where there really wasn't any recycling options that turned out to be feasible and, you know, institutionalized. People are trying to think about things, but they haven't. There's nothing to put in a handout for residents about what they can do at this point. So it looks pretty much the same on the front. We have the, you know, the online exchanges that they have in that part of the country, in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, and their options for donation centers. And then on the back, there really is only disposal options, so we put those down, but then also at the top, they wanted to highlight the idea of mattress deconstruction. So again, trying to see if citizens will do it themselves, and you could also, in theory, do that for upholstered furniture as well. I know both of the folks that work for the waste districts that I worked with in Vermont, you know, have done their own mattress deconstruction. They don't want to pay the $30 to bring the mattress. So, and then they also wanted us to promote that, you know, you really should do the right thing with your bulky items and all of your trash, and that you should not be burning it. That burning it is illegal. That is one thing in the Northeast. It is illegal to burn trash in all the 8 states that are part of NEWMOA. So, so they just wanted that emphasized, because in rural areas, even here where it is illegal, they felt like that was still potentially happening. So those are the 2 handouts that are customized. We did do template versions of those, so that you can write in. So you could write in where you are. You can write in your own local online exchanges, your own reuse and donation center options. And then this is the one that just has disposal. So I suppose if in your location it's not illegal to burn things, you can maybe put a little sticker or cross this part about being illegal out. But the rest of the messaging about, you know, the toxins is still valid. And then you can write in again your own disposal options, the date that the publication is published, and down here is a space to put your organization and your website as well. I forgot to mention that. So we did the templates for use in communities that don't have recycling, and then one for use in communities that do have recycling. And so those are good resources for people. And I just will make you aware of NEWMOA has done some other projects under this USDA funding in the past, and we have done a lot on pay-as-you-throw, which is also known as SMART, and we've done quite a bit on where is the waste paint. And both of those projects also produced really good publications that, again, are not, some of them are location specific, but some of them are not. So there's a brochure about pay-as-you-throw, and there's for municipalities that might be thinking about it with some case studies. There's also a handout for residents that are not location specific. And same with the paint. There's a brochure about reuse and recycling of paint that's not location specific, and also a template handout like we did. So there's some location specific handouts, but there's also a template for people to write in themselves and customize. So our website has a lot of information, but I'll just show it quick. There's our general website. Then we have a solid waste tab on the side. And then you go into the projects, and that's where you can find the publications, the bulky waste, the waste paint, and the smart. So, is there anything else? Are we basically at the, I guess the last thing to mention is we have NEWMOA is the home of a zero waste professional social network for people that are interested in zero waste programs and sharing information. It is a forum for zero waste professionals to share information on their program development and implementation. It has several hundred members at this point. I don't think it's super active, so you won't be overwhelmed with material, but it might be a way to connect with people to join the Zero Waste Connection. So, is there anything else to mention, Rachel, or any other questions that have come in?
Oh. Yep, there's a few questions that have come in. Let me see here. So the first one was about the handouts and the documents that Jennifer showed. We didn't create those templates in-house. We did contract with a graphic designer to do it. So basically, you know, we provided them the text and the photos, and they designed it to make everything look good, and same with the template versions. There's a question about, do you know if any of the pay-as-you-throw communities do swap shops as a way to incentivize people for reuse? And I think so, but...
Yeah, I mean, pay-as-you-throw is a good incentive to get people to not throw so much stuff away and to be thinking of other opportunities. Not everybody has the space or the volunteer, you know, a lot of times swap shops are kind of mostly run by volunteers. A lot of transfer stations will have a little area where people can put aside some particularly good things, but they're not usually bigger items. So they don't, everything doesn't always pair up that way. A lot of times people do bring a bulky item to a transfer station even when there's no, instead of putting it in the bin, they'll leave it beside the bin if they think that it's particularly good. And, you know, sometimes people do take them and they are reused rather than disposed of, but a lot of times it just ends up getting, you know, the transfer station operator has to get the little bobcat out and lift it up and put it in the bin at the end of the day. So the next time it's going to rain. So swap areas are not always something for the bulky items currently.
And then the next question is, do we know if any of the swap shops are trying to quantify how much waste is diverted to prove if it's worth it financially? And I'm sure some of them try to keep track, but I think some of the swap shops aren't, like, they're open at all times. So, you know, people might put something in the swap and then 20 minutes later it's taken and there's no staff, you know, no staff person there to kind of monitor that. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't
really
think they keep that kind of paperwork. I know there have been a few case studies done. You know, somebody had some funding to do like a pilot program, or you know, there's been some documentation of some of the swap events and trying to estimate, you know, the amount of material that was, you know, diverted from disposal at an event. I'm not sure, you know, an ongoing swap, there's more anecdotal information than there is numerical
Yeah, I agree. Possibly like they would test it for, a pilot for a week, pay attention and say, oh, but if you don't have the people staffing the areas all the time, it's really hard to kind of keep track of things. That's all the questions we have in the queue. So if you want,
okay.
Our contact information is here on the last slide here.
Yeah, so Rachel and I are happy to answer any questions. Like we mentioned, we will be posting these slides on our website, and we'll send out a direct link to everybody. But I encourage you to, look at some of the resources that we've developed for this project and the other two that we mentioned.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, with that,
yeah.
I guess we're done.
Thank
you,
everybody.
everybody.